Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We will be live. Let me just say hello. We are here, myself and David Faulkner. I was going to
Hello.
say the young David Faulkner, but you're getting old like me now.
Yeah,
So,
been around too long now. Lost that
so
weight.
hopefully everybody is joining me and I can hear you all. Let me just make sure it's all working, and then we'll start the stream. So just bear with me a moment whilst we just make sure everybody is working in all the different places. So today we're going to be talking, Dave, about selling your expertise on LinkedIn. We're going to be talking about some of the challenges of it, why you need to do it, particularly if you're not kind of a salesperson who, you're not a salesperson, you're not trained to do this. And we're going to be talking about the challenges of it, the opportunities of it, and some of the practical things you need to think about if you want to go to market on LinkedIn and actually use it as a platform to win clients. And you don't really want to kind of sell your soul to social media and sit there typing for hours doing all that stuff. So, Dave, do you just want to set the scene a bit just whilst we're letting everybody join and do all that fun stuff?
Yeah, of course. So if like most of us, right, you don't really enjoy the kind of pushy sales tactics, outreach, getting ignored, getting bad responses from people. No one really likes it. The thing is, salespeople are obviously driven for revenue. They have one job to do, and that is to get people on calls and make sales. But as a business owner or a solopreneur or a coach or a consultant, a lot of the time, what we want to do is actually sell in a way that aligns with who we are, how we want to be seen, how we want to be known. We don't want to leave that negative taste in people's mouths. We don't want to. We want to be able to make sales, but what we know is what we know. You're very good at coaching your clients or providing your expertise to people, but you may not be very good at marketing and selling yourself. And actually, what we do is we create a system, we create methods, and we leverage LinkedIn in a way that allows you to sell in a way that aligns with how you want to be known and seen, and also do it just by sharing the thing that you know, which is your expertise.
So when you're thinking about going on LinkedIn and you're thinking about the challenges of going on LinkedIn, and maybe we'll share some slides in a moment. Some of the big things about it is, I don't want this to take a ton of time. I don't want this to kind of suck up my life. And I meet people a lot who say to me, Dean, when I put the work in, I put the effort in, I put the hours in on LinkedIn, it starts to pay for itself. But I can't really do that sustainably for a long time, investing 3 and 4 hours a day on LinkedIn. It just doesn't work. I can't work like that. So one of the things we're going to look at today is, how do you sell your expertise, why you should sell your expertise, but importantly, how do you do it without actually really sucking up tons and tons of time? And that's the $1 million question, Dave, because we meet people all the time who say their content takes them hours, all of this stuff. Why do you think people think that they have to spend a lot of time on the platform to actually get results?
I think that people get obsessed with results and metrics that probably don't matter too much. And we've even gone through this journey of actually realizing that, and we'll see this in our content, I'll post a post that gets 40,000 impressions, which is great, it's significant. I'm getting a lot of attention. But actually, in terms of relevant people who really matter to what I'm trying to build or really matter to the topics I'm sharing, it's quite low. So actually, for me, a lot of people focus on, I need to get to reach as many people as possible if I want to be an expert. But you don't need to be an expert to absolutely everyone. And most of you out there probably need to sell, if you're selling something high ticket, only need to sell a few a month. So actually being seen by or caring too much about vanity metrics isn't actually that important. And your goals are actually very similar to, say, someone in sales who is just trying to build interests from specific people. And I think a lot of the time, the activities that we choose are more relevant to, say, chasing vanity metrics than they are for chasing quality results.
Yeah, and this is the fact. I said this at a workshop recently. We did a summit last week called Growth Titans in Manchester. It was a great event, And I was sat in a room with people, and a lot of those people were selling their own knowledge, know-how, and experience. And I was sat there talking, and I said, if you need, and there was one person in the room said they need like a half a dozen clients in a year, and that's all they need. That's it. So I said to them, just think about this for a moment. And you guys watching today here, think about this for a minute. If you devote an hour per business day of your time, so 5 hours a week, that's 260 hours a year that you have to win new clients. If you only need 20 of them, 20 clients, and you've got 260 hours, you'd look at that and go, surely 260 hours, 20 clients, that's possible. Well, it's only possible if you're doing the right things. And as Dave's saying, and Dave, I think you're bang on the money there, is it's what we do to get the results. And we think that actually trying to appeal to thousands and thousands and thousands of people is the answer. And actually, in many cases, it's the distraction. It's not the answer, it's the distraction. You're trying to basically improve the posts and wondering, why can't I get 5,000 views on this, which is a distraction from how do I convince 20 people to pay me money in the next year?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing, it's because content is the thing we're in control of. So people always gravitate, as someone who's not typically a salesperson or has sales skills, it's easy to go to content because that's another way to just deliver expertise, right? It's another way to just put out what I do know and hope it generates me business. And this is why content is almost like it's what people would use as a fail safe. It's like, at least content, yeah, it may cost me a lot of time, but it's something I'm in control of. Whereas outreach is like you're hoping people reply, and it becomes a little bit icky and a little bit difficult to believe in yourself with outreach. And then you've got kind of other systems which they're just not educated on, which we're going to talk to you a lot about today, and the systems that you can actually use instead of content to do the same thing but more effectively. Content is just one of those things. It's like content's consistent across all platforms, so I'm familiar with it. I'm in control, so if I post content, I will hope to generate results, and it's like a safety game. It's a safety play, really, for business owners.
So I've got a couple of slides, so I'll bring them up. Because I think it's worth us going through these. Just let me. I've got so many tabs up to manage this broadcast; it's really confusing. So just bear with me a second, and then we'll be good to go. So let me just share this slide.
While we're waiting as well, people, it's really good for us to see where people are joining us from. So let us know what location you're joining us from in the comments. Just so we can see kind of where we're reaching and who's here to kind of take on this message with us as well.
Oh, sorry. I've got this weird Canva thing going on at the minute. Let me just present. I don't want presenter view. It's doing my head in, Canva. Let me just flick this off, present full screen. So I think the fundamental thing that you need to kind of come back to before you go to LinkedIn, and I'd say this to anybody, before you go to LinkedIn, you really want to nail down why people need you. And the reason I say this, Dave, I don't know how we articulate this very well because it's a tough thing to say, is a lot of people sit on LinkedIn and going, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. If I get somebody interested, I know I can help them. And the hard part about LinkedIn is you've got a lot of people you can get to, but they're not very focused in their thought patterns. And that forces you to be disciplined and and focused in what you want to sell. If you want to go out there and you've got 3 or 4 hats that you can put on LinkedIn, you'll actually find it really hard. Dave, we see this when we're at workshops, when we're speaking, and people say, well, I could sell this and I can sell this and I want to sell this and I want to sell this.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
It's tough love, isn't it? You've got to say to people, focus on one thing, get some traction before you try and sell other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if you think about it, it takes someone probably needs to connect with your message 7 or 8 times before it turns into following or a fan or a client. So if you think about that, if you're constantly changing that message, you're losing the interest before you can create that second interaction almost. So it's like, I always say that it's by trying to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. And this is the kind of thing, is like, I try to cover myself. So I spread myself so thin that my message comes across and there's no impact. Whereas when I land one big, and you look at this like a meteor, you get that one big message or one key message. When that hits, everyone feels it. It kind of shakes the world because it's so impactful. You become known for something specific. And naturally, people come to you for other stuff anyway off the back of that message. And Dean, you've had this kind of dilemma yourself in the last 10 years where you're obviously, your expertise lie in business growth and previous experience you have is so vast, but you had to really focus in to make this work.
Interestingly, we were talking about this just before the live. 6 years ago today, I embarked on a new journey with the business. I won't go into the full story, but in we went through a process where we divided the business and refocused the business that we do, what you see today. And I had this real dilemma between the May and June, where basically I could not figure out for the life of me what I wanted to do going forwards. I could help with social media, I could help with email, I could help with websites, I could help with this, I could help with that. And we were in this phase of like, what do we do now? And we'd just been through a few years where we were doing all sorts and everything, and it was bedlam. It was stressful. It wasn't very profitable. It was just awful. And we decided we were going to focus on, because a lot of our work was with LinkedIn, we decided we're just going to do LinkedIn. That's it. Everything else, forget it. And at the time, that felt terrifying because you're basically choosing to limit yourself. You're deliberately imposing limits on yourself. And it feels like, oh no, but now I could get that website over there, or I could get that project over there, or I could do that now. No, I'm just selling one problem. I solve one problem. We help people master LinkedIn. So if they're struggling to leverage LinkedIn, that's what we do. And maybe many of you are feeling that situation as well. Maybe you're in that position whereby you're feeling like, actually, it's really difficult to actually get the traction. It's really tricky to actually cut through. And the only way you cut through is actually to solve one key thing. Otherwise, you don't get the traction. Now, outside of LinkedIn, you could sell 500 different things, a gazillion different things. But when you're in a platform where attention spans are limited, you are going to have that problem of having to cut through. And so you do need to focus on what you are selling. So Dave, just on that point, how would you tell people to pick or to choose which place that they would go and kind of focus?
So just recap that for me a second, Dean. I've noticed that we're having a few connectivity issues based on the comments. They're saying it's getting better now. So just wanted to make sure that we're on track. This every few
I have just tinkered with some settings. So the key thing is I couldn't cut through with my message until I focused. Mm-hmm. So in other words, what we're saying with content, with the selling process,
yeah.
In other words, if I'm selling one thing on LinkedIn, I've got one clear message, one clear offer to people. Suddenly it becomes much easier to kind of build that awareness.
Yeah.
There is a sense of fear that you get from doing that you might lose out. But if you had, say, 3 or 4 areas, what would be the way that you would advise somebody to choose which expertise, which angle to pursue on LinkedIn?
So the thing is, there's a few key different things to consider here. So I have a client that felt most comfortable targeting, say, elderly people who were looking for this solution because it was very specific to them. But what he didn't realize, or what they didn't realize, is that actually you got to look at who's on LinkedIn, who's more commonly using the social media platform, because there's no point targeting people who are less likely to be there. We have a cybersecurity firm who are targeting, say, information officers who don't use social media in the same way that marketing do as a function. So understanding who your audience are and how they use the platform is going to be really important in how you choose your message. For example, for us, we wouldn't sell necessarily Instagram on LinkedIn, but we would sell Instagram on Instagram. You've got to understand that the platform is about, you've got to make it so that it's most lucrative to you. So I'm not going to sell our lowest ticket offer if it means I have to put in a high amount of time and activity on LinkedIn to sell it. You've got to, and you have to analyze all of these things. But it's really easy to really consider is go, which is going to be most valuable for you from time efficiency, including the amount of prospects that are available to you, how active they are, and how easy it will be for you to get in front of those people. Because if they're less active on LinkedIn, email will be a channel that's going to be more effective for you. So it's about analyzing all of those different things and choosing which audience is going to be most available to me, which message has the highest impact, meaning which message has the highest call to cost of inaction value, meaning if someone doesn't necessarily or doesn't have your business as a solution, what area of the business is that going to be the highest cost to them, so there's more likely for them to take action. For example, if we focus in on LinkedIn profiles, that may be seen as less financial value to someone than, say, outreach, because of the clear result that outreach will generate an organization, whereas profile is more of a subconscious action and contribution. So
it's interesting what you say there, Dave, because you said something there that I think everybody should pick up on, is the whole point about the profile versus outreach. It's which one seems the most important and the most valuable to the client.
Yeah,
selling what is the offer that solves the biggest problem. Yeah, and this, everybody knows this, but for some reason we don't apply it to ourselves. Is we know that the person in high demand, the person who has people waiting to work with them, the person who has people who are willing to pay more than the average market price, they're paying for somebody with very, very specific expertise at solving a very, very specific problem. And so, yes, I can go on LinkedIn and say I can solve your job problems, your sales problems, your career problems, your hiring problems, all that stuff on LinkedIn. But I focused on one area, which is the most difficult in my view for people, is how do I predictably and consistently win clients from LinkedIn without selling my soul to social media or having to sales pitch people. And it's about, for you, picking which out of your skill set is the most valuable, that you're the most expertise at, that commands the best price. Understanding where you are in the value ladder, that this is a really narrow area that is specific enough that I can command a higher price. And a lot of people miss that. We know about it for other people. I'm a bit of a, I shouldn't say this, I'll get in trouble. I drive a car, and as you do, and nowadays the cars that you drive don't necessarily, you don't feel the speed like you used to. So I've had a few points and done a few speed awareness courses. I know I'm naughty, but I know how critical my license is to me. Now, if I ever got in trouble and was risking my licenses, thank God I've never been that far, never done that far. But if I did, I wouldn't just hire a general solicitor to help me if I was going to lose my license. I'd employ somebody who's got experience with that particular case. If I wanted the best outcome, I employ the people that will get me that, who've got the most experience in that. And part of what we've got to do on LinkedIn is show people that we're the person with the best experience in solving a specific problem, because people expect to pay more for it. I'd expect to pay more for a specialist driver lawyer than I would for a general lawyer, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that might even mean that you only have access to 1,000 people who may be willing to spend that money, or 100 people, right? But with those 100 people, you increase conversion, you increase your opportunity and your chances because of how focused you're going, whereas your competition is still trying to appeal to everyone else. And look, people buy from people they like, know, and trust. The trust and credibility gets built by seeing you display and leverage those expertise, right? That's how you make sales, is because people are actually building that trust and credibility because of listening to you go over that message consistently and sharing such value to them so specifically that it's hard for them to ignore you. It's hard for them to gravitate anywhere else. And Dean, what I wanted to ask you is, with those people that potentially the subject that's most relevant or is most has the highest value, but yet maybe the most uncomfortable for them or the least known to them, what would you say to someone in that position?
Well, it's interesting. Let's say you did pick something that wasn't mainstream, shall we say? Let me give you an example. If I post LinkedIn tips on LinkedIn, I'm onto a dead cert, aren't I? But if you're selling specialist advisory to law firms, say, that's not going to be the most popular of subjects. That's not going to be the thing that sends you viral. So when I'm thinking about how do I sell that and how do I communicate that, the first thing I've got to accept is, for somebody, if I want to do it as frictionless as possible, as simple as possible, what's the stat, Dave, about the amount of consumption of content or that people need to consume? What's the stat again?
So it takes someone on average 46 minutes of consumption of your expertise or content to be able to buy into you fully.
So 46 minutes, right? Now, if you try and do that with posts, let's just think about this. The average view on a post could be anywhere from 3 to 30 seconds, right? 47 minutes is a lot of freaking posts, right? However, this is where long form content can be really valuable for you. Yes, it's not going to be the most popular of things. It's not going to get thousands of views or millions of views, but it is going to help people consume you and consume your knowledge more, to the point where they go, this is the person. So in terms of thinking about, you're choosing something that's not very comfortable, it might feel a little out of sorts, it might not be the most popular niche, but if it's a valuable niche or a valuable focus area, it doesn't matter how popular it is or trendy it is. It matters whether there's enough demand for it. And like Dave says, if there's 1,000 people who'll buy it, or 5,000 people, that's quite a tiny audience. But if you can identify who they are, if you know who they are, then actually that's quite a juicy little world you've carved out for yourself. Then it becomes about a process to actually engage them. And if you understand, actually, it's going to take about 47 minutes of consumption one way or another. If you can factor that into your plan, yes, plan for LinkedIn. If you factor that into your plan, you can now start to go, what am I putting into that plan to get me to those 47 minutes with as many of those 5,000 people as possible? And Dave, what are some of the ways that people can use up those 47 minutes? If we just said, right, it's a 47-minute plan, right? Every prospect roughly has got to go through 47 minutes. That's the plan. What do we need to be doing in those 47 minutes to actually to kind of move those prospects from cold to client?
So look, there's some really good activities that you can do. LinkedIn wants us to create relationships, right? As far as a platform goes, it wants us to hold attention. It actually wants us to engage with people we know, and it wants us to build relationships. So actually, you can be rewarded by going and spending a bit of time engaging with your audience to get them to engage with you. So let's take content, for example. Even though content is not where we put all of our eggs, right? It is going to be a huge part of the journey, because content you can create 30 seconds with a post, and that will add up because you can consistently post daily. But then what you want to do is actually, instead of relying on LinkedIn to put you in front of the right people with your content, just hoping you get the right message, go out and engage with some of the people who you think would be relevant to that message. some of the leaders that you want to see you, instead of hoping your content appeals to them, go out and engage with them. And I'm a firm believer across any social media platform, if you don't go outbound, you will not get inbound, right? And you look at this on Instagram, LinkedIn, any of them, unless you go out and engage with people, you will not draw that engagement yourself, right? Instead of thinking about how can I get seen by 1 million people, I can be seen by 10 very specific, very accurate people who I really care, trust, and find me credible. Go out and engage with their content, like their content, view their profile, comment on their posts, tag them in things, direct message them, go out and get their attention to get them to come back and look at you, because every action on LinkedIn leads to a reaction, which basically means they're going to come and check you out. So you get that first initial few seconds on your profile, which could lead to a couple of minutes if they really feel like they're in the right pace. Then they are checking out your content the next day because LinkedIn is prioritizing you on their feed. And not only that, your name recognition, your face recognition, all of this kind of memorability that you're generating is all contributing to that initial piece of content. And we're not even looking at a key strategy here. That's just normal engagement and using social media for what it's there for.
It's interesting you say that, Dave, because most people's content strategy would be that that's the primary thing. And what we're saying is actually the opposite. That's the background thing. Mm-hmm. And this is something, if you cannot, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but if you cannot, if you think, oh, well, if I just blow up on LinkedIn and I post more and more content, that's going to be the answer. That's a heavy investment. Just think about 47 minutes. For you to get an impression on a post, it's 3 seconds. And let's say we'll be optimistic and say every post that you get gets a 15-second impression, right? I can't quite work the maths out there, but it's 181 posts you'd have to do to win a client. 181 posts. That means the equivalence of 1 client a year. 2 clients a year, to be generous. Just the reality of it is it's not realistic. Somebody would have to see your posts every day for 6 months to become a client based on the stats, right? And we know there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always that one person, but that's you can't build a strategy on flukes. You can't build a strategy on something you can't control. So that's why I say to people, yes, content's important, but it's not the front of the strategy. It's the thing that's working in the background that you can't quite predict. You can't quite see where it'll go long term, up, down, anywhere, but it is something working away. What goes on top of that, Dave? So on top of that layer of awareness building, education, what do we stack on top of that to build the strategy?
So what comes next? Mm-hmm. So our goals here is always about, especially if we want to create kind of interaction like this, is about nurturing. So once we've identified and we spoke about specifically who we want to target, I've told you about some ways to get a smaller audience to see you and become aware of who you are. You cannot just sit on that interest or sit on that curiosity. Your job then is to try and convert that curiosity and actually some of the best ways that you can leverage your expertise is going to be about using resources and using different ways to actually turn that person into some form of action, like joining your email list or a newsletter, so you can then start to really feed those expertise. So, for example, your job then is to start to, at this point, what you're doing is building an audience around a topic that you want to be known for, right? And that audience is building through content, through outreach messaging, through engagement strategies, like I just explained. But your job then is to actually turn that interest into a way for you to get those contacts and nurture them a little bit more specifically. So how do you make sure then you're seen by that person on a regular basis without having to spend 10 minutes commenting on that post every day, right? So my priority is then, how do I turn all of this interest into an email address or further opportunity through other nurturing methods? And it'll be about how can I use lead magnets or how can I use some of LinkedIn's features to actually turn them into, like I said, a contact in my email list at this point or on my newsletter.
Yeah, so you've got to get people into an ecosystem you can control. So things like an email newsletter, building an email list, that algorithm proofs your whole LinkedIn strategy. If LinkedIn's algorithm changes and the content doesn't work like it used to, you'll still have a viable business. But then also think about things like what I'm doing right now. This is another way to engage people, and it might seem unusual. You might worry about whether you'll give the game away and they want to be involved in it. But this is another way to basically educate people and bring people into your world, because they've got to buy into you. And this is my diagram here, right? This is my diagram. The more buy-in you have, the less sales skill you need. The less buy-in you have, the more sales skill you need. And so part of what our job is to take that group of people and, yes, do the content, but how can we take them to the next stage and get more buy-in? That means capturing emails. That means hosting webinars and audio events and freely sharing information. But if you don't do that piece, you're just kind of bouncing along the bottom with the content, waiting for somebody to come to you. You've got to get enough people in your world to think you are the best person to go to about this topic or about this problem or about getting to this objective and this goal. And I've been doing this. We've been doing this for years, Dave. We just do the same thing over and over again. It's like a routine in our business now. It's just something we do without thinking. And that's really what the best strategy is. If you're thinking about a strategy to build a business, it's something that you can do that can fit into your routine and it becomes instinctive.
Well, if you think about it this way, those of you who have been here from the beginning and stayed with us till now, you're at 31 minutes potentially of consumption of our value, of our expertise, and of us as people, right? So think about, if you stay now till the end, you'll be looking at more than 46 minutes of consumption of one particular message, which is selling your expertise. It's relevant to you or else you wouldn't be here, right? The message is relevant to you or else you wouldn't be here. But you're getting a lot of buy-in to potentially us. And naturally, if you've taken something valuable from what we're talking about today, you will gravitate back to us as a means of support, as a means of something different around a similar message on LinkedIn. And we aren't becoming the experts at selling your expertise. We're actually becoming the experts to help you as a business to develop. And you'll see this outside of this now. You'll become more apparent of who we are as people. You'll become more apparent of Maverick and what Maverick's message is, purely because of how you've come in off the back of this one very specific message of how to sell your expertise. And that 46 minutes is going to be generated very quickly. Or I say very quickly, in 46 minutes in one go. Your emails, your content, if you're calling, you're relying on minutes here, there, and everywhere to try and build that together. And bearing in mind, people's attention spans are quite short, so you can lose that interest quite quickly too. This method, and it's weird to sell the method that you're actually performing, but it's a very valuable way. And Dean, we've done this for industries like packaging. So if you're thinking, well, yeah, but you're selling LinkedIn on LinkedIn, it's easy for you guys, right? We have clients doing this in packaging. Some of the industries that is very hard to let the message seem sexy, right? But actually, everyone has an audience that's interested on this particular message. It's just making sure that, like I said, we put all of those things together, put them all in a room with you and let you do your thing, which is talk about what you know. It's hugely valuable.
So there's kind of 4 parts to this strategy. The first part is the compelling offer. In other words, you've narrowed down and said, I'm going to solve this problem. I might solve other things outside of LinkedIn, but for LinkedIn, it's this. This is what I do. Then we need to define who are the key people who will pay for it, the most valuable clients, the people you can add the most value to and are prepared to pay good fees and good rates for your services. So map those out. You can do those brilliantly on LinkedIn. Look at what's the thing that's most valuable I can offer, and can I find those people on LinkedIn? I've met many people who've come to LinkedIn and said, I want to sell this to these people. And then when it comes to it, the audience is difficult to find or difficult to identify, and that's part of the problem. So compelling offer, defined audience, a very, very clear message. Like, I see this a lot: jargon, waffle, vagueness. Just get really specific, get really straight. And then the system to pull that all together, the activity plan. What am I going to do each day? What am I going to do each month to actually move people, not just from I've got a bigger set of connections, I've got more impressions. No, get them actually down into conversations, actual conversations with people. And that's where you need a system. That's where you need a process. If you don't have that, you're guessing. You're just, going onto LinkedIn and posting because you feel like it. What's the system that's taking people through and people are coming out the other side as paying clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. We all come on we come on social media and use it as a tool where we dip in and dip out. It's like, I think, if I just go on today and post, but tomorrow I'm not active at all, I'm not present, it won't matter, because it's all about the one-time activities or actions that I take. But LinkedIn is just like any other marketing strategy. And you don't need to be a marketer or a seller to understand that things need to be planned. You need to know who you want to target, because that reflects what your message is going to say. Your message needs to speak to those people specifically. And just like anything, email, we need to utilize some key things here that are gonna effectively give us the best result. So understanding all of those things before you activate the strategy on LinkedIn is going to be crucial. Too many times we dip in, then dip out, then dip back in, and it's so intermittent that it's no wonder we have broken results with a broken strategy.
Mm-hmm. So this is an example. It's a simplified example of the process that we work. But basically, it's build awareness, help people taste the value, and give them an opportunity to buy. That's really what we're doing. See, taste, buy. It sounds really simple. It is relatively straightforward, but it's only straightforward if you've defined yourself. It's actually really, really difficult to do this, right? I would argue almost impossible until you do this. And I'll tell you why, right? You can't use this system. You can't use this system until you know who needs to see you. You can't use this system until you know what's the problem you're going to solve. Yeah. You can't do this until you know what you want them to see, the personal brand. Same for tasting the value. Value is subjective. So if somebody comes to me and tells me all these clever things about the composition of steel, I don't give a flying whatever. But if I'm a metallurgy expert, or I work in the chemicals industry, and I'm posting about that, and I've got chemists and people in the heavy metals industries and stuff like that in it. They want to know this. They're intrigued by it. But me as LinkedIn Dean and what I do, I have no interest in the composition of metals. So this is the point here, is that if I have a problem about steel and you're talking about steel, I'm gonna resonate with that, and I'm gonna want to know more about that. If you provide me with more information and more helpful, and you help me see how you can solve a very specific problem, guess what? I'm gonna know you're the go-to person. I'm probably going to refer you to other people because I know you're in my network and you're the go-to person. So you can't have that unless they can taste that value. And that value has to come by choosing to deliberately define yourself again. And then the buying phase is literally giving people an opportunity to buy rather than a sell. Give people an opportunity to buy. And that means, it means follow-up, but it also means more than that. It means instead of trying to sell them, is you uncover their need and change the way you deal with them, you interact with them, so that it's more like a doctor-patient than a salesperson and a prospect. And it's far more relaxing. And Dave, you've seen this yourself. When you go on calls and you adopt this approach, the clients, it's not about you telling them they need this. It's about you uncovering their needs, and they find it for themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if I sit there listing features, benefits, I have 10 years experience, people don't care about that stuff. And we become quite naive. Like, I'm really having to sell myself, but actually we don't. As long as we provide a solution to the one thing that they struggle with, or the one thing that means that has a high amount of value to them as a business or them as a person, they will find a reason to spend the money and pay for the solution. And we try to cover too much ground. We try to appeal to all of the challenges because we're worried we may not hit the one that's most pressing for them. But we can do research. We can do things like LinkedIn polls. We can do surveys. We can track the analytics of our content to see which message actually lands and resonates with our audience. Everyone in marketing and sales is always testing, right? No one gets it right every single time. What works today may not work tomorrow, right? Your job is the same thing, and we're all kind of learning this. So test your message, test how your offer is communicated, and see how your audience responds. Do a webinar and see what the attendance is like. Do an audio event and see what the attendance is like to gauge how much impact that message had on your audience.
Yeah, and I was just as you were mentioning audio events, one of the things that changes the game here is it's not really about the number of people who sign up. It's about whether the right people sign up. So yes, it's great. Let's get 200 people there. Absolutely no brainer. Let's get as many people as we can to sign up. Perfect. Brilliant. But actually, I had a conversation with somebody the other day. They had 20 people on their audio event, and you'd go, oh, 20 people, what's the point? They got 2 sales out of it. Because it's not really, think about it, it goes back to that original point here of 260 hours, 20 clients. It's about getting the maximum outcome from the least amount of work, right? The maximum outcome for the least amount of work. So what most people do is, I want to do the least amount of work and get the maximum outcome. It's the other way around, maximum outcome for the least amount of work. So how can we get more from less? And if you flip this and go back and go, well, I'm just going to do content, you will happily, over the next year, put 260 hours in, and you will be lucky if you get 2 clients. Yeah, unless you over invest. So in other words, you go 2-3 hours a day, going all in on content, investing all the money in the content, then maybe you can change that. But most people, I can tell you, cannot sustain that. Or the other extreme, I'll actually go outbound, cold messaging people, trying to sell high value services. Well, good luck with that. Everybody tries it. It doesn't really work. So you've got to have a process. It's about discipline. This is not a sexy message. I would much rather say, here's how X, Y, and Z made £1 million in 30 days, and you get them in your inbox all day long, and sometimes you buy from them, and then you realize I'm no better off. You need systems, you need processes, but they're boring. Processes are boring, except when you realize that they unlock clients, and you do them over and over again until they become habits, and they're client getting habits. And that really is what you really want to have. That's what we teach people to do. It's client getting habits. It's not some secret sexy strategy with all these kind of wild promises that basically mean jack's zero.
Yeah. LinkedIn is the vehicle for everyone, right? LinkedIn is a vehicle. We use it because it has a lot of features that allow us to get that consumption from our audience. It also gives us access to a real significant amount of audience and a very good way of targeting and focusing in on specific people based upon their situation. We have a lot of opportunity on LinkedIn, but it is the vehicle. It's not about learning how to use LinkedIn. The only point in doing that is if you understand who is valuable to you to target, how you want to prepare your or propose your offer to those people, meaning what topics are you going to be talking about? How do you want to create that value that you can share with them? And one of the common things that I have from my clients is that I don't want to share too many of my expertise because people will take it and run, right? People are, if I give them too much, then I give away all the juicy bits and I have nothing left to show them. And Dean, from your experience, how has that worked?
It's the number one. It is the number one thing that most people who are selling expert knowledge of any kind worry about. What if I put out something, I do a webinar, I do an audio event, and people decide to do it themselves? Everybody worries about that. Guess what? People who are going to do it themselves are always going to do it themselves. Always, right? You can't change that. You can't force people. You can't arm twist somebody into doing it with you that were going to do it themselves. Why you'd want to put yourself under the pressure to try and do it, I don't know. But let me give you some other dilemmas. Would you rather people learn from Google, from your competitor, or from you? Because everything's out there. Make the choice. It's not one. We don't have these binary decisions of what if I say something and people learn something and go and do it themselves. Well, no, that's one thing. What if they learn from a competitor and buy from them? What if they learn from Google and go onto Google and find somebody else and don't realize you did it? That we can all make up these hypothetical situations. What's certain is if somebody gets good quality, valuable information from you that's relevant to a problem and they need help, they will go back to the person who helped them the first time. The first person they speak to, the first person, that's where they go back to. So is that you? Is that competitor? Is that Google? You have to make that choice. And so this whole fear, a scarcity mindset almost of what happens if I share something and they go do it themselves is just a false argument. Because I could inject, and I have injected, 3 other false arguments. We don't know. We really don't know what happens. We're just guessing. So I would rather go, do you know what? I'm going to put it all out there because I understand, and I bet you understand this. You're not selling information. I'm not selling information. You know, I could literally sit all day and tell you every last bit of LinkedIn. The hard bit of LinkedIn is not making the carousels that tell you all the little tips. The hard bit of LinkedIn is not sat on video here saying, do this, do that, do the other. The hard bit of LinkedIn is actually doing the work, building the habits and the routines and the systems and the processes that actually get a result. That's why people buy into me and Dave and Maverick, for our expertise in getting the result, not the head knowledge we've stored up after using LinkedIn over and over and over again. So all of this head knowledge is useful, but it's the experience you're buying. Same for you. So this whole thing of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, you can't live off what ifs.
You're absolutely right, Dean. You make a really great point about we're giving away information. It's theory. It's just information. And actually, it's the implementation that really where people struggle. And you should know this because actually when your clients come in, they don't just sit and listen to you waffle on. It's usually very specific things that they have challenges with that make it personal for them. And you cannot make it personal to everyone when you share your expertise like this. And naturally, you go out for a meal and you eat something that you found amazing, delicious. You don't go and look for that meal elsewhere. You come back to eat again at that place because it's about you naturally gravitate to the person that helped you or provided you with that level of service or that opportunity. And we always do this. Someone will message us and say, Dave, I used your tips from the webinar and I managed to get a client. Thank you so much. And it's like, wow, amazing. That's great. I'm not losing any sleep, the fact that they didn't pay me for it. What I know is if someone else that they speak to, someone they're connected with, asks them, how did you do this? Where can I get the support? Who are they going to direct that person to? Who are they going to shout about when it comes to talking about this service? And we have to create a kind of balance here between clients, fans, followers, and people that will carry our message, as well as the people that will come and buy from it. And I had this thing with clients that have gone, I need to charge for my calls. I need to charge for my webinars. I need to charge for everything, or else I lose that feeling of importance. And it's a mindset that will cause you to fail really in a strategy such as social media or LinkedIn or social selling.
It's a bit like, it's a bit old school this, but most people hopefully will know what the yellow pages used to be, the big book that used to get the telephone directory, right? It's a bit like me employing somebody straight out of uni, giving them the yellow book, there's the information, and saying, right, I want you to go and make 6 or 7 sales this week, right? Just because I'm the expert and I've given you all the information, the phone numbers, right, doesn't mean that actually they can pick up the phone and sell. That's the skill. That's the tactics. How do you structure that call? What do you say? All of that stuff is the bit that's the tricky bit. Yeah. And what the sad part is, you go on social media and you hear, here's how I got 5 clients last week. I did 1, 2, 3. And of course it's not 1, 2, 3, right? It's actually a way more complicated than that. But we latch onto these simple steps. But the reason why you know this, I'm teaching you to suck eggs here, because in your own topic, you know that the simplicity of the steps and the actions and the things are way different, right? In other words, it can be 1, 2, 3, but that one is flipping huge, right? That one is flipping complicated. That's why people need our help. That's why people need your help. It's not the fact that you can go to Google and go, how do you post on LinkedIn? It's not the fact that how do you go to Google and say, how do you analyze the chemical makeup of titanium? Actually making titanium, actually making a post that resonates with your ideal customer is a lot more difficult than just going to ChatGPT or whatever. And I think we miss this. So we've got to be prolifically sharing our expertise. And that's what we encourage people to do inside a system and a process, to take people from I don't know you to I trust you and want to buy from you. And that is a process. And if you don't have a process, it will fail. I can tell you now, if you don't have a written down plan, if you don't have daily actions, your process there isn't a process. It's just going to fail.
And we always say this to our accelerator members. So we have a program which we take solopreneurs, small business owners, consultants, coaches on a program which basically helps them to turn LinkedIn into one of these opportunities where they can sell their expertise. We cover things like positioning of your offer. We cover content creation. We cover messaging. We cover all the back end, as well as the ability to use LinkedIn and build a system that creates consistency and also longevity in this approach. But we do not just let anyone on the accelerator. We could just put it out there and say it will guarantee you these results. But actually, we could say, look, we've got a proven framework and template that will get you 50 calls a week, right? We could say all those things, but we couldn't deliver on them for everyone. What we do is actually we offer the program to people who we know want to take action. They see the opportunity, but they know it's going to take a little bit of work. It might take 45 minutes a day to actually make this work. But actually what they get off the back of it is so much more significant to them, because they can now sell in a way that actually takes no sales skills, but just leverages what they know and what they're good at. And that is something that aligns with them as a person, aligns with them as a business. And actually they feel now that selling isn't a chore. It's actually part of their journey to helping people and making an impact with their audience. And that significance is actually seen for our members who are now making consistent revenue and also they're owning their space on LinkedIn with specific expertise, but they're doing so in a way that actually they're happy to be on LinkedIn. They're happy to sell because it's not really selling in the way that we're all scared of it. Right, Dean?
Yeah. So it is a tricky and challenging thing. But Claire's just asked, how do I convince my client to focus on one message, as I need raw content from them to be able to help them create the plan and see it through? So Claire, I'm assuming you're a social media marketing person. This is a tricky one because basically your client has that fear of, well, we want to talk to everybody and everything. And the way I always approach it with the clients is say, look, let's nail one thing. Let's make one thing successful. Let's take all the learnings. And here's a brilliant tip. I know I'm Claire, you're probably slightly a competitor, but it doesn't matter. Is real simple, right? There's 2 ways we can do this, Mr. Client or Miss Client. Number one, we can do a really focused effort on one thing, nail that, work out all the chinks in it, get it right and get it working, and we can do that more quickly, or we split our energy across multiple products, multiple services, and we nudge them all along, but that will be slower. Which one do you want? I think that's a good answer.
I think there's a lot of things here with what Claire does, like in virtual assistants and things like that, is that most of the time the reason people need you, even though there's very specific reasons they need you, their challenges are usually quite similar. So it will be a time problem that they have, which makes them need you. Yes, there may be specific things like marketing they want support with, or it could be something completely different like office admin. But the difference that there's always going to be a time link between them. So then we start to focus on the challenges, and it's like the webinar titles start to focus on the impact of the challenge itself and how to alleviate it. So actually the message, you focusing on one, let's say as a virtual assistant, you focus purely on the marketing side. Yes, you may only appeal to 10% of your audience, but the buy-in you get from that 10%, like we've said previously, will initiate higher conversion than if you try to appeal to 4 different sectors or areas that you can help people with. Yes, their challenge very specifically will be difficult to hit on the head. Just like today, we couldn't cover everyone's need for selling their expertise, but you can get a general idea of what most people will struggle with. Is a very similar challenges across the board here that we can pull on.
So Dave, we've got to wrap up because we've got another call with our accelerator members in 5 minutes, and they're waiting for us because this week we're going to be talking about how to follow up, how to do relaxed follow-up that doesn't seem pushy or pressured from interested people who've engaged and interacted with you on LinkedIn, who are your ideal fit clients. So we're going to be doing that. But if you want to chat to me or Dave, or you want to know more about how we can help you sell your expertise on LinkedIn, how we can build those systems, how we can help you focus so that you don't end up kind of chasing your tail a little bit and everything moving along slowly. If you want to kind of focus in on that, drop us a line. You can either message us on LinkedIn or message us on LinkedIn. We'll send a little follow-up. I know a few people have had issues with the connectivity today. I think it's a LinkedIn issue. We do have this recorded, so we'll try and send the recording round if you missed any of it. But if you want to know how to deploy this into a process and a system that works, habitually works, and doesn't become a big chore, drop me or Dave a message and we'll talk to you about the accelerator.
Yeah, and just connect with us as well, by the way. Drop a follow, drop a connection. We're doing these every week. So there's plenty of value for you to have and grab hold of. So do connect with us. It'd be great to connect with you guys as the first instance.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you spending the time and bearing with the connectivity, the damn internet. I
think it's just LinkedIn, actually. YouTube's been working, so I think there's a
LinkedIn.
I think
LinkedIn, sort your live streaming out. It's glitchy to begin with, but sometimes it's really bad. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Drop us a line, Dean or Dave, if you want to talk about things more or if you want to ask some questions. But we'll see you next week. I'm doing an audio event on my profile, and we're going to be talking about how do you build a powerful presence on LinkedIn. So we're going to be taking this bit one step further and talking about some practicalities you need to think about. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.